Cost cutting. Have you ever thought you would quality to become a full-time employee? You temps are getting the boot. Did you really think you could become full-time employees? Too bad, we will use the system, but not you guys. Hurry up and get out. Director Smith gloated as he mocked the temps and took credit for their work. Seeing his shameless attitude, I internally sighed while keeping a confident smile. Well, do your best after I'm gone. What? Don't be so cocky. Temps are disposable. It's really pathetic. Enjoy your last bit of work. About a month after I resigned, I suddenly received a call from an unknown number. The caller was my colleague, Johnson. Williams, long time no see. I quit Endeavor Works too. Surprised, I agreed to meet her to hear her out. When we met again, Johnson said, Williams, will you start a business with me? What? Start a business? I was shocked by the unexpected proposal. However, this was the beginning of our success. My name is James Williams. I'm a 40-year-old office worker this year. I work for a system engineering service company that dispatches IT companies and skilled personnel. In other words, I'm an IT temp. I didn't major in computer science or engineering, and I didn't graduate from a vocational school or college. I acquired the skills related to my current job through self-study. My hobby was originally PCs, and I learned programming while playing around during my school days. Reading technical books wasn't a chore for me, so I could acquire a decent amount of knowledge on my own. In high school, I struggled with the decision to go to college, and at one point, I even gave up on taking the entrance exam. My family was poor, as my father had passed away when I was young, leaving my mother to raise me alone, but she encouraged me to go to college. Since we couldn't afford to take a gap year, I studied desperately for a year after deciding to take the exam. I managed to pass the entrance exam for a local national university's information department, which was strong in science and engineering. My mother was very happy, and it gave me confidence as well. However, a few days after the acceptance announcement, while I was spending the last days of my high school life, I received news that my mother had collapsed. I rushed from school to the hospital to see my mother, who had narrowly escaped death. She was hospitalized for a while. And not only did our family lose its breadwinner, but we also needed funds to pay for the high medical expenses. I decided not to go to college and started working immediately. I had no doubts. However, since I hadn't job hunted, I couldn't find a job right away, so I juggled multiple part-time jobs after graduating high school. Fortunately, my mother's condition was slowly improving each time I visited her, and she eventually began to be discharged and readmitted repeatedly. As her periods of home care grew longer, I was able to nurse her by her side. Once she was out of danger, I finally felt relieved. I was deeply grateful that I didn't lose my only close family member. Don't worry about me anymore, you can go out and enjoy yourself. My mother insisted, but I was worried about leaving her alone for long periods. When she was at home, I did home-based part-time jobs, while also honing my PC skills and studying for certifications. Before long, I was able to take on jobs through crowdsourcing, utilizing my programming and video editing skills. The following year, my mother's condition had stabilized enough for her to start working from home. By then, I was 25 years old. I'm sorry for taking away your valuable college years. You don't need to take care of me anymore. Use your time for yourself. Got it. It's about time I start job hunting. I want to work for a proper company and put your mind at ease. Encouraged by my mother's words, I decided to resume my job search. Through the work I had done via crowdsourcing, I realized that even without a college or vocational school background, my skills and knowledge were valid. Therefore, I focused my job search on the IT companies I was interested in. That said, I was still worried about my mother. I wanted a job with some flexibility, so I decided to work as a temp, taking on short-term and one-off jobs. I got a job at Best One Tech Inc., a system engineering service company, and started working as a direct hire temp. My workplaces were various IT companies to which I was dispatched. Thankfully, I have received high evaluations at these assignments. More and more companies have wanted to extend my contracts for longer terms. By learning the internal workings of various companies, I was able to gain industry knowledge and on-site experience. I found that this way of working, experiencing different workplaces, suited me well, and before I knew it, 15 years had passed. Last year, I left a company where my contract had ended and was assigned to a new company this year. Endeavor Works Inc., a small IT company with fewer than 200 employees. They mainly handle IT consulting and infrastructure consulting. I had heard beforehand that they were short-staffed, but I was shocked when I saw the site on my first day. The IT industry is short-staffed everywhere, but this exceeded my expectations. Compared to any other company I've seen, the lack of personnel and workload was glaringly obvious. When I was shown to my department, everyone welcomed me despite being busy. However, their faces looked extremely tired, suggesting significant overtime hours. "So, you're the new temp. I'm John Smith, the department manager. Nice to meet you." The only one who looked healthy in the department was Manager John Smith. He was 47 and had just recently been promoted to manager. "I'm James Williams. I look forward to working with you." "A 40-year-old temp, huh? That's a good age for a temp and you seem experienced." "Recently, the young temps quit quickly and lack determination, so I'm counting on you." He smiled at me with a confident attitude, and I returned the smile and bowed. Manager Smith looked youthful and had a gentle demeanor. However, his outdated sense and assertive personality showed through his words. I found him to be elusive and hard to pin down. "You'll be working with an employee for a while to learn the ropes. I'll have you paired with Johnson, who knows the field best, so you can rely on her." Manager Smith said this and introduced me to a female employee who looked busier than anyone else. "I'm Mary Johnson. If you have any questions, ask them on the spot." Her black hair, shoulder length, was hastily tied back, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She seemed unapproachable, but her work appeared to be very efficient. "I look forward to working with you, thank you. Today, watch the work I do from my side. I don't have time to thoroughly understand what you can do. So if there's a task you think you can handle, let me know, and I'll explain it in detail." "Okay." Johnson quickly said this and immediately returned to her work. I sat in the empty seat next to her, opened the provided PC, and began preparing for work. "Also, if possible, please don't quit anytime soon. Explaining things takes time and is a waste if you leave." She added this while looking at her computer screen. I thought she seemed rude, but as I watched her work, my opinion changed. Johnson was handling the workload of 2 to 3 people while still managing to take care of me. Seeing how busy the workplace was, I had expected to be left alone on my first day. But she gave concise and thorough explanations of the tasks she was currently handling. Johnson's straightforward words could sound harsh, but they were efficient, waste-free, and precise, making it easy for me to share my thoughts on the job. "Williams, I think you have these opinions because you have extensive experience working on the vendor side as an SE. Here, you need to consider the user's perspective more. I understand we need to view the project broadly, not just focus on system construction, but we should rethink cost-cutting. Quality results are the foundation of satisfaction. Within a few days, we became a good team, openly sharing opinions and working together on multiple tasks. However, no matter how much our efficiency improved, the workload never lightened. Manager Smith easily accepted tasks from above, ignoring the field situation and creating unrealistic schedules. "It looks like you two are working well together. By the way, I need this done by tomorrow." Manager Smith: "We're already overloaded with our current tasks, so meeting a deadline by tomorrow is tough. We're a flat company with no biases. Just because you're temps doesn't mean you get to slack off. Keep up the good work, rookie." Smith said this cheerfully and left on time. Despite his poor understanding of the field situation, he was extremely sensitive to any slight breathing room in our work and quickly increased our workload. As I worked, I got a good grasp of the department's internal workings. There were many inexperienced employees, young hires from non-technical backgrounds, and few mid-level staff like Johnson, who should ideally be bridging the gap to management. The work wasn't simple and was plentiful. There was never enough time to train employees, so new hires didn't stay long and quit soon after joining. And so they ended up hiring temps, but even those temps left quickly. This is what you call a black company. While working late into the night, Johnson said softly, "It wasn't this bad before. In the past year or two, the field has become terribly disorganized." It was clear that the cause was the newly appointed Manager Smith. Discontent grew, and the talented employees left quickly. I watched as my peers resigned one by one until I was the last one left. Johnson had been picked up by Endeavor Works' president after the company she joined as a new graduate went bankrupt. She felt indebted to the president and couldn't bring herself to quit despite recognizing the problems. The workload had always been heavy. But after the new manager took over, there weren't enough people, and the company became completely black. It's obvious just by watching that Manager Smith is all talk and can't handle the workload. He talks in ideals, sets unrealistic schedules, and leaves the work to others. He forces unpaid overtime, leaves early, and says it's all for the growth of his subordinates, covering it up with pretty words. He may be a smooth talker, but he only managed to bring in contracts. Apparently, Manager Smith had previously secured a major contract and made it a success. But his promotion to manager was questioned by those on the ground. Johnson: "At this rate, every remaining employee will collapse from overwork." "I know, I think so too. I want to do something about it, but I'm always swamped with what's in front of me." Hearing her slightly resigned tone, I made a suggestion. Johnson's eyes widened as she listened. "You're right. If we don't quit, we have to change things another way. With you here, Williams, maybe the two of us can do it." Johnson and I resolved to break the current situation. We decided to tackle the unstructured small tasks. The lack of transparency in processes, the unclear workload, and the shared knowledge and common issues that needed to be communicated. After a while, Johnson and I, the senior members, began to run the site. Although I initially thought we might not get along, Johnson and I clicked well and became close friends. Sometimes we clashed and had arguments, but we encouraged each other and kept things running. Despite the busy days, we managed to find time to develop a system. The goal was to implement an internal work system to make everyone's job easier. The time spent on this naturally accumulated as unpaid overtime. With long hours each day and late-night work, Johnson and I often slept at the office. Practically living together, we managed both our regular duties and the development of the system to improve our work processes. After several months, it was finally completed. We finally did it. Now we just need to get Manager Smith's approval to implement it. That might be the toughest part. Let's proceed cautiously. After making the final adjustments and completing the necessary paperwork for the system, we spent the weekend planning how to persuade the manager. On Monday, we presented the new work system to Manager Smith and proposed a trial implementation. This system will greatly improve efficiency. We'd like to test it. Can we get your approval? If we implement this system across the department, it will burden everyone. In the worst case, operations could temporarily halt. Seeing the manager's negative attitude, I spoke up. While adapting to a new system will take some effort, it is already complete, and the benefits of a small initial investment are significant. Your workload will also improve significantly. Trying to convey the value of the system and how it would make his job easier. I saw him waver, but his conservative nature led him to delay the decision, and days quickly passed. However, we didn't give up and took turns trying to persuade him. Manager Smith, please allow us to implement the new system to improve efficiency. After several attempts to persuade the manager, a certain person appeared in the department. It was the president, who occasionally came to check on the field. This was my first time facing the president of Endeavor Works up close. Sounds like an interesting discussion. If it leads to improvements and efficiency, we should definitely test it out. Our company needs this right now. No objections, right, Manager Smith? The president, having heard our conversation, urged the manager to approve. Of course, I've always encouraged them to improve productivity through efficiency. It might be a bit tough at first, but everyone will cooperate, right? With a complete change of tone and the agreement of the entire department. The trial implementation was swiftly decided with the president's approval. I was internally annoyed by Manager Smith's easy change of attitude, but I was genuinely happy that our hard work was paying off. The president looked at me. You're the temp Johnson mentioned, right? I've heard you're excellent. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. No, you've been a great help. We're facing high employee turnover now. I'd like to improve things where we can. If you're interested, consider becoming a full-time employee here. I was surprised by the unexpected offer, but I just expressed my gratitude for his kindness. The president said this and then walked away with a smile. And so, the test implementation of the work system we developed began. At first, we had to fix bugs and errors and deal with data loss and malfunctions. But Johnson and I quickly made improvements to minimize the impact on work. As usual, we worked late into the night and slept at the office, and thankfully, other employees in the department began to help us. Of course, the manager didn't participate. See, I told you, already tough work has become even busier. I warned you for everyone's sake. He only came by to make snide remarks about how difficult the department had become temporarily. But we didn't mind. We all worked together to reduce our working hours and secure a healthier future. It was tough for about a month, but very fulfilling. By the time we were done, the entire department felt like comrades. Thanks to everyone's hard work, the new system began running smoothly, and after testing, it was officially adopted. The department's work became noticeably more efficient, and client issues due to late deadlines decreased. Our overtime hours slowly but surely decreased. Manager Smith reported the test results, and guidelines for implementing the system in other departments were shared. The stagnant atmosphere I had felt when I first joined the company began to lift, and everyone's dark circles started to fade. One day, I was called in by Manager Smith. We have a hearing with a client coming up, and I'd like you to handle it. All right, I'll check the schedule with Johnson. When I said that, Manager Smith shook his head. You've gotten quite used to the job, so I want you to go on this business trip alone. I tilted my head at the word business trip. A temp going alone to a client's place on a business trip. It was an unusual case, so I had doubts. It shows how much I trust you. Hearing this from the manager, I hesitated. The president had also mentioned wanting me to become a full-time employee eventually. So I figured this was a flat company with no barriers between temp and permanent staff. All right, if I'm suitable for the task. And so, I was set to go on a 2-day business trip. I was told to call once I arrived at the station at my destination. Before heading to the client's office, I called the designated number. To my surprise, they offered to pick me up at the station. Unable to refuse, I got into a taxi with the client's employee who came to pick me up. Instead of taking me to the office, they took me to a fancy restaurant and gave me excessive hospitality. Even when I declined, the employees kept insisting on entertaining me, and when I asked about work, they dodged my questions. Feeling uneasy, I excused myself to the restroom and tried calling the company I was supposed to visit and my contact there. But I couldn't get through. Sensing something was off, I received a call from Manager Smith. Manager Smith, perfect timing. I have some concerns I'd like to discuss. As I said this, he started laughing on the other end of the line. So, how was the hospitality? Did you enjoy it? It's a farewell gift for you, so don't hesitate to accept it. A farewell gift? What do you mean? Feeling uncomfortable with his unusually high spirits, I asked cautiously. This business trip is your last job. Good job. That new work system you developed was great. It saved enough man-hours that we don't need to hire temps anymore. His words gave me a bad feeling. Are you saying you want to terminate my contract early? If so, you'll need to contact my agency, Best One Tech, and follow the proper procedure with a valid reason. If I claim you caused problems, that would be grounds to terminate you, right? Manager Smith's sudden change in tone made me more wary. He had always seemed elusive, but now he was finally revealing his true nature. The excessive hospitality and this sham trip, actions beyond the scope of a temp's duties, I can explain it however I want. Are you threatening me with fabricated claims? He didn't answer and started speaking cheerfully. You were an annoying shooth, but you were convenient to use and discard. It's a shame to let a temp take credit for this system. I made sure to report it as my direction to the higher-ups. I wasn't surprised to hear Manager Smith brag. His efficiency suggested he had been stealing his subordinates' achievements for some time. That's probably how he reached his current position. But this involves an external contractor, not just internal staff. Does he realize this isn't just an internal issue? Cost-cutting, temps get the boot. Did you really think you could become a full-time employee? Too bad. We're using the system, so get out. I'll be happy to. Do your best after I'm gone. Did he really think I wanted to work as a full-time employee at EndeavorWorks, a company known for its harsh conditions? As a direct hire temp, losing a position doesn't put me in financial trouble. Seeing my calm demeanor, Manager Smith scoffed. What? Don't act tough. Temps are disposable. Really pathetic. Enjoy your last bit of work. Maintenance and updates would be handled by Johnson, so they didn't need me. However, Manager Smith didn't realize that terminating my contract would have serious repercussions for EndeavorWorks. As soon as I returned from the sham trip, I received a call from Best One Tech, my agency. The sales rep was perplexed, saying that EndeavorWorks had abruptly terminated my contract. When asked for details, I explained my work situation and Manager Smith's statements without hiding anything. I can't believe it. This is outrageous. Williams is an excellent technician, and this treatment is unfair. The rep was furious and said they would demand a penalty for the unilateral termination of the contract. Otherwise, they would negotiate for more than 30 days' notice or wait until the contract ended, The previous temp employees had been hired by the former manager, so I was the first temp manager Smith had hired. Because of this, he apparently had no understanding of the contracts and employment systems between companies. Although he resisted paying the penalty, the agency insisted it was their right and made the demand. Without a proper handover, I was terminated with the penalty payment. It was unfortunate that I couldn't say goodbye to everyone in the department. But I convinced myself it was just a temporary position as a temp. I sent Johnson a short email explaining the situation and thanking her for her help. Since I had to return the company laptop and phone provided by EndeavourWorks, I included my personal phone number for any future contact. I decided to take it easy and regain my peace of mind until my next contract was finalized. About a month after I left, I received a call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be something important, I answered. As I expected, it was Johnson on the other end. "Williams, long time no see. I left EndeavourWorks too." "Johnson, you left. What happened?" To hear more details, we arranged to meet that evening. When Johnson arrived at the meeting place, she looked healthy and well-rested, with no signs of the dark circles under her eyes. We caught up over dinner, sharing what had happened since we last saw each other. When Johnson heard the story of my departure, she was furious at Manager Smith. "So that's what happened. He was so desperate that he fabricated a business trip because he couldn't wait for your contract to end. He must have been really threatened by your competence. Apparently, it was rumored in the company that I was fired for causing problems at work. But since there was no concrete evidence, Johnson had always thought something was off. I was grateful for her anger on my behalf, and I couldn't help but smile. Because I was suddenly fired, you and the others must have had a lot more work to handle. The bigger problem is that Manager Smith is taking credit for the internal system we worked so hard on." I nodded, recalling Manager Smith's last words to me over the phone. He seemed to think it was only natural that the system Johnson and I developed would continue to be used. Of course, the system we developed could be patented, and it generally belongs to the inventors. "How is the system now?" Manager Smith said he left all the maintenance to you. "I've done just enough. It will run smoothly for a while." Johnson hinted that she had left some holes in the system, meaning she had intentionally done just a bit less. "For a while. Either way, if they want to keep using the system, they'll need your permission soon. They'll have to decide whether to pay the patent royalties or completely abandon the system. It should hold up until then." About that, was it really okay to patent it under my name? Manager Smith didn't know yet, but the system implemented at EndeavourWorks was already patented, thanks to Johnson's suggestion, and it was under my name. Typically, if a system is developed within a company, it becomes the company's property as per the contract. Johnson understood that if she filed the patent, it would belong to the company. As a temp, I hadn't signed any transfer agreements, so my patent would never belong to EndeavourWorks. Manager Smith clearly didn't understand my position. "Of course, you were the one who originally came up with the idea, Williams. You also did most of the design work. Considering Manager Smith tried to steal the credit, it's good the patent isn't company property." "That's true, but I still feel bad since we created it together." Johnson's expression changed as if she had an idea. "Then, Williams, why don't we start a company together?" "What? Start a company?" I was surprised by the unexpected proposal. Johnson looked as excited as when we first started developing the system together. "The president, who was my mentor, has decided to retire. If the system stops, the company will face another crisis. So I decided to leave, but I would love to work with you again." Johnson decided to resign as soon as she learned about the president's retirement. When she explained her reasons to him, He apologized, thanked her, and promised to support her future endeavors. But starting a company is too much of a leap. You feel bad about monopolizing the patent. Right, and you mentioned once during overtime that you'd like to start your own business someday. I realized I might have said something like that. It was more of a dream, an unlikely fantasy. I never expected it to come up in such a concrete way. Thanks to the president's help, I've already found work that will sustain us for 2 months. I have plans for the patent too, so please. I hesitated. I imagined the future of leaving my long-time job and starting a business with Johnson. I remembered the fun we had working together from morning till night, even if it was only for a few months. 1 year, if we don't get results by then, I'll return to my current company. Johnson was thrilled by my words, and we shook hands to seal the deal. I resigned from Best One Tech, where I had worked for many years. The company kindly told me I was welcome to return any time. From the next day, I started preparing for the new business with Johnson. With my mother's permission, we used part of my family home as an office. After completing all the necessary startup procedures, I finally felt settled. That's when I received a call from a familiar number. It was Manager Smith's company cell phone number. I had seen it so many times that I memorized it. When I realized it was him, I put the phone on speaker so Johnson could hear as well. "This is Williams. Hey, since this morning, that damn system hasn't been working at all. What's going on?" Without any greeting, Manager Smith started yelling. Johnson and I exchanged glances, knowing this moment would come. It seemed the system glitch Johnson had intentionally left unresolved before she resigned had finally caused trouble. "This is making work impossible. How could you install such a crappy system? Fix it now. If you want to continue using my system, there will be a usage fee. If you need maintenance and support, there will be additional charges." Don't be ridiculous. This was created by a temp during work hours at our company. Before I could finish, Manager Smith started shouting again, but Johnson calmly spoke up. "No, Williams developed it outside of work hours. The logs are there as proof." "Johnson, why are you there? Your sudden resignation threw the field into chaos. Won't you come back?" Surprised by Johnson's presence, Manager Smith's anger momentarily subsided. Considering Johnson's work history, her sudden resignation must have been a significant blow. I decided to start a business with Williams. Of course, the patented system Manager Smith wants to use is part of our service. When we calculate the usage fees and future maintenance costs, it comes to about $20 million. Manager Smith gasped. "What are you talking about? There's no way we'd pay that kind of money for that piece of junk. You are at least required to pay for past usage, otherwise, we will proceed with a civil lawsuit." At the mention of a lawsuit, Manager Smith's voice rose again. "Don't be ridiculous, Johnson. Were you in cahoots with that incompetent temp?" Johnson's anger was evident to me as she responded to the insult. "Let me tell you. Without Williams, who you call incompetent, our company's operations would have collapsed long ago. EndeavorWorks has become a company that relies on a single temp because you couldn't manage." Manager Smith always referred to me as you or temp. Johnson noticed he had never once called me by my name. Manager Smith growled in frustration over the phone. "And if you think it's a piece of junk system, you don't have to use it." Johnson's words caught his attention. "Fine, if it was all you're doing, just revert it back." "Understood. Then, we will expect your promise never to use our developed system again." Johnson demanded the complete cessation of the system's operation in exchange for waiving the usage fees up to that point. Soon after, EndeavorWorks underwent a change in leadership. At the same time, The internal system was completely shut down. The company, reverting to its black company ways, saw an exodus of employees. It was clear the operations, which had been barely sustained by the system, would collapse. All of Manager Smith's direct subordinates resigned, halting the department's operations. Johnson and I heard this directly from former colleagues. Manager Smith begged us not to leave at the end. It was his own doing. He got really mad when we said we couldn't work without you and Johnson, and that we were following you. Those laughing colleagues were now interviewing at the company Johnson and I had started. I was so happy when Johnson contacted me. Those who couldn't come here were also delighted. Johnson had not only secured contracts to implement the halted system at other companies, but also arranged other necessary steps. She quickly signed contracts to introduce the system to competitors, ensuring regular patent royalties. Using those funds, we expanded the company and increased the number of jobs we could handle. We also started recruiting former colleagues from EndeavorWorks. Of course, not everyone could come over, but 3 talented colleagues joined our company. Our company steadily expanded the scope and scale of our projects. After a while, when we had 5 employees, we received a call from a former client from our days at EndeavorWorks. They appreciated our past work together and wanted to contract our new company for future projects. We secured a major deal, and a few days later, Johnson and I went for a meeting with the client. When we arrived at the client's office building, we were met with a surprising sight. "Johnson, isn't that Manager Smith?" Johnson looked in the direction I pointed and let out a gasp. There he was, unmistakably Manager Smith, clinging to the client's representative and bowing his head. "Please, I beg you, don't cancel the contract. EndeavorWorks can't meet the deadlines. There must be other ways to handle this before begging." Manager Smith was being dismissed and was repeatedly pleading, causing everyone in the entrance to frown. Johnson and I sighed at the pitiful sight. As the client's representative brushed past Manager Smith and approached us, we greeted them, catching Manager Smith's attention. "What are you two doing here?" "We've decided to work with Williams & Johnson's company from now on. After the excellent work they did previously, we didn't hesitate when we heard they'd started their own business. Thank you for the kind words. We look forward to working with you," I said. Manager Smith erupted in anger. "How dare you betray us? You wrecked our system, poached our employees, and now you are stealing our clients, traitor." "Who betrayed whom first? You took credit for Williams's patented system and then fired him during the contract period. How can you expect any loyalty?" Johnson shot back immediately, defending me. The client representative looked exasperated. "Please leave. We want to work with reliable partners and will no longer do business with you, Smith." Turning pale, Manager Smith stumbled away. EndeavorWorks tried to fill the critical personnel gap with temp workers. However, with no proper leaders and an ad hoc command structure, temps didn't stay long. The company repeatedly failed to deliver projects, losing clients. Bad industry reputation spread, and the stock price plummeted. Eventually, the company faced a class action lawsuit from former employees for unpaid overtime, leading to its operational collapse. This revealed the details of Manager Smith's forced unpaid overtime practices. His past problematic behaviors and statements were exposed, and he faced severe criticism from the remaining employees. It was also reported to the company that he had taken credit for the work system we had developed, leading to questions about his accountability. The company held him responsible for causing the employee exodus and for the class action lawsuit over forced unpaid overtime, demanding compensation. Rumors spread throughout the industry that EndeavorWorks had been ruined by an incompetent manager. Manager Smith lost his job, burdened with the disgrace of ruining the company and a significant debt. From what I heard, his situation after that was miserable. Labeled as incompetent, he couldn't find a job in the same industry. Even outsourcing companies turned him away, and he wasn't hired even as a temp, a role he had scorned. A former colleague mentioned seeing him working a convenience store job, where he looked much older and was being berated by customers. Our company began receiving more new requests. There was a surge in work from clients who had previously contracted with EndeavourWorks. As EndeavourWorks completely ceased operations and awaited acquisition, we were chosen to take over their halted projects and handle new requests. Clients we had worked with before spread the word about our company, and our reputation brought in more consultations. We were able to meet the demands of clients who wanted to entrust urgent and complex tasks to those familiar with EndeavourWorks operations. As our business gained traction and we decided to expand our team, the deadline Johnson and I had set passed unnoticed. The 1-year mark of our startup wasn't about the company's future, but about our relationship. We got married and became a family. While our relationship as business partners and friends was comfortable, we wanted to support each other beyond work. We are now thriving both professionally and personally, enjoying happy days together,